Welcome to another episode of Wide Open Throttle. As you can see, totally different layout. That's because we have a very special episode today. We are evaluating MotorTrend's 2014 Sport Utility of the Year. Now I'm joined by 8 editor judges, my colleagues, Frank Marcus, Allison Harwood, Kim Reynolds, Johnny Lieberman, Rory Jernica, Ron Kino, Scott Mortara, and Benson Kong. And for the last 3 days, we've been driving around the beautiful Santa Ynez wine country in 22 different SUVs. Now on that first day, we drove all 22 vehicles representing 13 different manufacturers, and we made a cut from 13 manufacturers down to 7. How we did that? By evaluating against MotorTrend's 6 key criteria: performance of intended function, advancement in design, engineering excellence, safety, value, and efficiency. So let's start with some of the vehicles that we cut, starting with the Paceman, mini Paceman. Ron, Johnny, what'd you think?
It was a wild ride. It was kind of like being on a horse going fast.
Yeah,
it was just all over the place.
The first line of my notes is charismatic little weirdo with ridiculous suspension. And the other thing was the price. When you bring value into it, it's a small, very small SUV, and it's $40,000. I mean, I just can't even imagine who the customer for that car is.
I think on the other end of the spectrum, we had the Mitsubishi Outlander. And Kim, you had some interesting things to say about that vehicle?
Yeah, the car was just disappointing. In the market today, there's many interesting alternatives and choices out there, and this car just underwhelmed in almost every category. The styling is kind of boring, the interior is drab, the materials are not remarkable, and in the case of one of the vehicles, the CVT is really problematic.
It's terrible, yeah, it's really bad.
And it's in a very competitive segment.
Very competitive segment.
There's no way you're going to be SUV of the year if you don't stand out in
Anyway.
that. Yeah, exactly. Speaking of another competitive segment and a vehicle that we thought might actually do really well, the Toyota RAV4. I mean, it's a sales leader, but this one we weren't that impressed with.
Yeah, we really weren't. It was really kind of middle of the road. It didn't advance very far from the last one. The transmission was a lot better. The 6-speed automatic is a lot better than the 4-speed, but it rode kind of firm, not a lot of power. The 4 cylinders, a carryover engine. I wasn't too impressed.
Yeah, and it's weird because I did like the way it looked. I thought it was very aggressive, but really didn't stand out, so it can't advance. Moving on, Range Rover Sport. That's a totally 180 degrees from the RAV4. Frank, what were your thoughts?
It's very good looking. It's a lot of fun to drive. It's really fast. So it's doing a lot of the functions that it's intended quite well. So those categories look pretty good. But with pricing from like $76,000 to $92,000, you expect real serious, perfection. And I thought the ride was pretty choppy. The infotainment system was really kind of ancient. And my biggest problem was that new V6 supercharged engine was not at all smooth in its power delivery. It was very difficult to drive smoothly around town. It was surging, and you always felt you were going to be jetting out into traffic. It was a little, it just demanded too much concentration that way.
Kim, yeah, you had some interesting.
Yeah, I admire its sort of regalness in the design. There is a splendor about that vehicle that I do enjoy. But there's also a height about it I don't enjoy quite as much, and that results in a lot of body motion to the occupant, the driver, and I just felt uncomfortable in the vehicle.
Right. So moving on to the Kia Sorento, Scott, Benson, you guys had some interesting thoughts on these vehicles?
Well, one of the key criteria is the advancement in design, and I do like the way Kia has been going with their design of their cars, especially. This one, it lost that Euro style and feel that they've been going with, which for me was, pretty much a step back. Another thing is the efficiency. The engine, the 4-cylinder, they had to change ratings on it. So the car was floaty. It was just not a class leader for sure. It was a very soft ride, soft steering, light steering.
Yeah, Kia claims that about 80% of the Sorento is all new or redesigned. Like the interior, while it's a lot better than what it was before. In a very competitive mid-size crossover segment, you have to do better.
All right. And rounding out our group that we cut is the BMW X1. And Allison,
You know, the X1 was a lot of fun to drive on this loop. I really enjoyed that. The problem is that part of being an SUV is taking care of that intended function, and that includes carrying passengers and cargo, and it just seemed like the packaging in that was just lacking.
Yeah, I mean, to echo that, I mean, a lot of fun to drive. Really sporty, I think the best steering here. But the utility is lacking, tight back seat, tight cargo, and I think it suffers a little bit on value. It's a little pricey, especially, you start adding those packages and stuff, and they get 40, 50 grand. I mean, it's quite a bit of money for a small CUV like that.
So there you have it. Those are the vehicles that did not make it in our first cut for Motor Trend Sport Utility of the Year. That's the Mini Paceman, the Mitsubishi Outlander, the Toyota RAV4, the Range Rover Sport, Kia Sorento, and BMW X1. We're now down to 7 manufacturers and a total of 10 vehicles. For the last couple of days, we've been driving all these vehicles around the beautiful Santa Ynez wine country on a course, roughly 30 or so miles of highway, canyon roads, and then 3 to 5 miles of off-road looping. And now we're ready to talk about which vehicles we think is Motor Trend's 2014 SUV of the Year. So let's start from the bottom. We'll start with the vehicles that we maybe don't think that have that much of a chance at winning. Let's go first with the Hyundai.
Hyundai Santa Fe, that'd be my first cut. I mean, things already rattling apart. I think when we filled it up, it had 1,895 miles on it, and it sounds like the whole back is made of styrofoam, just squeaking. You could see the seats vibrating behind you. And the off-roading we did is not that brutal, and that low miles, I just on that basis, not engineering excellence. I'd kick it out.
And I have to back you up on that. And I just want to start by saying, when we first got the vehicle here, it was driving a lot better and everything was put together a lot better in a short couple of days. And by the end of today, it just felt like a completely different SUV.
Okay, so Hyundai's out, moving on. Buick Encore, which, to be honest, I liked a lot. But could it be SUV of the year? Benson, go.
Yeah, I dare everyone to find a larger vehicle that has a better thought out backseat. Like if you sit in the back, there's a lot of space for 3 people, not just 2 people. And the way that they did, the cushions, so they fold forward, it's so you can fold the seats down. It's so there's more cargo area. That's very clever. However, it kind of plays in its own little niche segment, and so there's not really much for us to compare it to. But it's kind of underpowered. It has 138 horsepower, and you really feel all of those 138 horsepower on a hill, on a straightaway, off-road.
It wins a comparison test among its segment, hands down, because there's nothing in it. They're alone in that segment, in my view.
I was thinking, maybe it compares with an XV Crosstrek. It's kind of funky,
something like
sort of
that,
small,
or a Juke, that kind of thing.
But it's
pretty different, and I bet they don't get cross-shot much.
And this one is quite a bit more expensive than those, I think. So, the Juke you can option up.
It rode quieter and more comfortably than the RAV4. I drove them back to back, and I was amazed by that.
They did a great job with the ride, on the freeway especially. The ride was good. It was quiet in there, nice materials. It handled really well. It was kind of fun off-road.
To Benson's point, I think it's a product packaging miracle.
Yeah.
There's so much content in there. It was quiet, all sorts of space in the second row. Really, really good design. Very, very strong engineering excellence, I think.
So why are we cutting?
Except for the dash layout. How many buttons did we have
35 buttons and 4 knobs in a space smaller than an iPad mini.
And then also the design element I thought was really odd, the way that the dash swoops one way and goes another way. I didn't think it rode that well. I felt it to be very, very soft, and because of that shorter wheelbase and narrow, you felt like you were riding up, and it was rolling and bouncing everywhere.
Yeah, I had trouble with the styling. I think if the styling showed more imagination and more daring, I might have warmed up to it. But the Buick grille and the venti ports and all that were just silly.
It's funny though, because 4 years ago already, when they introduced the Regal at the Hollywood Palladium, they had a room where you had to take your cell phone out and put it in a lead-lined bag, and they had a styling buck of that thing. And they kept the style. Because I was like, "What is that? Is that a Chevy?" They're like, "No, that's a Buick." It was like, huh.
My problems with the Buick are kind of looking at it as the day-to-day living with it, that kind of perspective. Because, yes, you were talking about all the buttons that are in the center. And I looked, there are 3 different buttons that have the term nav on them. So if you... So you're looking at that thinking, wait a minute, which one am I supposed to push? Now, obviously, an owner would get used to that over time. Another problem is when you're, choosing a station on the stereo, and there's a sleeve that goes around a black button, and you think, well, okay, I'm going to push the button to select that station. This is just a small example, mind you. You don't push the button, you push in the collar.
You figured that out quickly, though, and I did find that of all those buttons on there, you don't have to push most of them once you get used to the menus. On the, you hit home, you can do almost everything from there.
That's the other thing, too, reaching. I got long arms, and that I do not want to reach over to the dash like that to scroll through different things and different functions. You're going to do that, you need to put it nice and accessible where everybody else does that. You don't put it up there.
Well, I think we've already covered the reason why it can't advance. It's a great vehicle, well packaged, well designed for its segment, but overall, not really.
Not the SUV of the year.
So next up, this one is going to be difficult. It's quite a darling. I really enjoyed the way it drove. The Audi SQ5, which represents the, to be clear, the Q5 lineup. Rory, get in there, buddy.
It was a rocket ship. I loved it on the road. It was a perfect blend of SUV practicality combined with a car that, it felt like a sports car.
So what SUV? That thing was like a rally car. It does not feel like an SUV at all.
We were on the Nürburgring last year, and there was a Q5 passing McLarens and 458s and just lapping all for days.
It was this car.
It was this car, and it's unbelievably how fast that car is.
And the car feels like it was hewn from billet. Everything is so firm and solid, and all the materials are so wonderful. And the Audi MMI really, really works nicely. And
You said it best. You said it feels like it's worth $61,000, and that's
Well, it is $61,000, which to me is maybe a bit of the statement, against it on value, but
I don't know.
it performed almost as quick as the SRT and got 2.5 miles per gallon better fuel economy.
actually I bet you it's faster than the SR.
Maybe
yeah.
similar, and
It feels pretty damn quick, and 61,000 is a lot for like that segment. But I was telling some people I would take that over. I think a Cayenne S. It's maybe $90,000,
And you're not even. Yeah, it's probably that one's probably faster than a naturally aspirated Cayenne. You're probably nipping at the
faster,
heels
yeah.
of the turbo.
all right.
The trouble I had, though, was the ride quality was so harsh. I could not live with that. It's just too extreme. And it was hard to judge the vehicle by this example.
Yeah, and that's one of, I think, our main difficulties here is that all we have to go on for the range is the performance of this super top-step, high-end, fully loaded SQ5.
How's the 2-liter? How's
It's
the
a
hybrid?
wide
How's the
range.
diesel?
Yeah.
Well, and not only that, but I wonder, is this same transmission going into all those? I honestly don't know. But it's like
a high-end
it's such a terrific transmission, and anything else is almost going to feel like something's lacking.
I think one of the most interesting things was, so this SQ5 had very aggressive Dunlop tires, but it also has hill descent control. And the hill descent control worked, but then you also kind of wondered, how does that hill descent control work on the diesel version or the hybrid version?
Again, all questions we really can't answer because Audi couldn't make the other vehicles available to us.
And not only could they not bring us, but as far as rating safety, the Q5 line hasn't been tested by NHTSA in all the tests. There's a lot of holes in our knowledge about that product line, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's too bad because we know it's a huge seller for Audi. It's a great car. I think you said it again. The only fault with it is that the nylon thing over the sunroof lets in too much light. And aside from that,
that's nitpicking. I also I'll nitpick a little bit on MMI. I think.
the button still spins the wrong way.
I think so this spins the wrong way. It's menu driven like crazy, like nobody else. I agree that Audis have done really good interiors, and a lot of their human computer interface stuff is great, but they need to keep the ball going
Step it
here.
up. Yeah, it's getting old.
People have caught up, and it's it's a little too it's kind of dated, to be honest.
Yeah, but it also drives, like you said, like a rally car in the dirt.
it's super
Scott,
fast.
right?
It's
It was one of my favorite cars in the dirt. That thing absolutely flies. But to Kim's point, very, very, very firm riding vehicle. And if we had at least one, if not the 3 or 4 other variants that they had, that would have given us a much, much better idea. Because I love that car. That Audi was probably my favorite car to drive everywhere around here, but I couldn't live with that. Way too firm.
So I think we kind of have it. We like We like the SQ5 a lot, but there's too many questions about what it means to the rest of the range. So for that reason alone, it can't be our SUV of the year. All right, let's really get controversial then and talk about the Dodge Durango. Now this is one that I liked a lot for different reasons. We had two different versions with us. We had the V6 all-wheel drive and we had the RT, which is V8 rear-wheel drive. Ron, I think you said you liked the V6 quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I was, I drove the Hyundai before, and I was like, wow, this Hyundai is, quite good. This Durango better be, really good, and it actually was. The powertrain I was really impressed with. The new 8-speed, excellent. I mean,
Solves a lot of
really
problems.
smooth. Really kind of doles out the power nicely. I thought it rode pretty well. Handling was, I think, decent. A little, quite a bit of roll and stuff. It's a big, heavy vehicle. Packaging's awesome.
Yeah, it had one of the
Second and
best third row here.
Not only is the third row can you put like adult humans in it, but then when the third row's up, you can put 4 roller boards behind it.
It really does seem to give you the best of the big body-on-frame vehicles with the ride and handling of the crossover unibody vehicles. It bridges that gap, and the big high towing ratings of 7,200 pounds.
And
or
remember,
7,400.
the bones of it are based on the GL, which was our SUV of the year last year. So
Mercedes-Benz GL back when it was Daimler Chrysler.
Yeah. But that's what
clarification.
Chrysler got this platform in the divorce.
Right.
I've got to say, based on what you were saying before, I totally agree. It's really refreshing to see a vehicle that is rear drive, can tow, can do all the things that someone who still wants that feeling of a traditional SUV but doesn't necessarily want that same body on frame attitude about it. They can kind of get the best of both worlds here.
I was surprised personally with how good that vehicle is on the highway when you're trying to hustle it around. Surprisingly good turn-in on both of them.
Good bones.
Yeah, but I mean, for a vehicle that big, I mean, I was really surprised. Probably the second biggest surprise driving-wise of the vehicles out here.
And another one with all 3 rows up, when I drove around, nothing seems to be rattling loose in it, which,
well made.
especially for big open tubes made in America, that didn't used to be the case. So good for them.
Kim, you've been really quiet here. I know you have some you have some reservations. And we haven't talked much about the V8. So do you want to comment on one or either?
Yeah, the RT I enjoyed driving. I thought that was quite nice. But I disagree with your third row comment. I sat back there and I was very uncomfortable. And while there, I noticed the trim on the windowsill was falling apart, and you could actually see the welds of the sheet metal from your position.
But they were holding nicely, weren't
But
they?
they were holding together, yes.
And Rory?
Well, one of the issues I had with the V6 was how much roll it actually had. I mean, it actually felt a little bit hefty to me. What I like about the RT with the V8 is the suspension is so much firmer. I mean, you just eliminate so much of that roll in the corners.
And I did run you down in the Encore when you were in the V6.
That's true, yeah. I had Johnny go around me in the Encore because I'm like, there's no way I'm keeping up with him.
V6 is a little pokey, I'll say. Now, does this one suffer from, say, the same fate as the Hyundai and the Kia before, where we believe there are other vehicles within its own segment, the 3-row SUV class, that are better, and in that case we can't really...
Maybe the Mazda CX-9, but I think the Durangos...
You can't tow a 24-foot boat with
You sure can.
CX-9.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people don't do that. As Scott says, they tow with Chevy and Fords, but I mean, it's a good SUV. Really. I mean, my only problem is I feel like Chrysler's holding it back. I think they're kind of protecting the Grand Cherokee and maybe the future Jeep Grand Wagoneer. Like, you can't get the air suspension. I mean, they are keeping the price down.
And the interior is not as dressy.
It's not as, even though it's, we know that the Grand Cherokee is a shortened version of the Durango, but it's not as, they're not putting as much attention into it as they are.
I'm glad you brought that up. So raise your hand here if you would pick the Durango over the Grand Cherokee. Actually, I might be the only one.
On the bubble. I'm really close. Really
Okay.
close.
So that's why we're not talking about it as SUV of the year winner. There's another vehicle here that maybe does a little bit better. But we'll get to that one.
And it's not that it's not as if that Ram doesn't offer, for example, air suspension. I mean, you have, I realize they're separated out a little bit, but you can get air suspension in the Ram.
In the Ram, but not
and you
in the,
can't get it in the Durango.
No, that's what I'm saying. I feel it's like the
I
Porsche
agree,
Cayman
yeah.
situation where, like, let it be as good as it can be, and they're for some reason not doing it. I don't know. Maybe because the volume's lower.
I don't know.
I don't know. But
All right, so we're down to our last three finalists then, and one that I was very much looking forward to, the all-new Acura MDX. Now, Benson, I think you have some interesting things to say about this car.
Yeah, it's like, not that this is a bad thing, but it's like the MDX kind of reminds me of a fast minivan with a little less utility. If you sit in the third row, like there aren't any air vents for the third row. And if you flip the second row down to gain access to the third row, like you'll notice that the center armrest, so it constantly stays down. It's like, so it automatically flops out. And it's, overall, like there's just a lot of heave in the ride, and didn't think it was so great.
Wow, I see, because
Benson
I'd
has
have to
spoken.
completely disagree with you on that one. I thought I was really, this was probably the most surprising vehicle for me. Bringing back the SH all-wheel drive, I mean, turn this into a completely new vehicle. You can really notice the difference when you, what do they call it, their IDS system. You can really tell the difference between the comfort and especially the sport. I mean, it was an absolute blast to drive around here. One of those cars that when you drive it normally, you do not expect it to be able to do what it can do out here. I mean, you can really throw it into a corner and it sticks and it turns and it goes through. I was really impressed with that, but there was definitely some downsides to it.
During the figure 8 testing, it was one of the nicest handling. You could really sort of get it into a little bit of a drift exiting. But around here, it felt heavy. It's beautifully well made and very solid and a substantial vehicle, but it felt heavy. There's a price for that.
I think that, but part of it being heavy, or feeling heavy at least, is refinement. I mean, I thought it had the best like isolation from the road. It really felt like a luxury vehicle. And back to like what it can do, it has a cool little screen where it shows you what each wheel, the torque delivery. And I wish it was like a heads-up display so you could look at it while you're flipping it, because you're doing this and you can see the left rear outside wheels being overdriven and it's on the screen. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's almost like they need to give these suburban, owners a Skip Barber day, because you have to learn to drive this car weird.
Yeah.
Okay, you need to get into a turn so hard that it's plowing, and then you have to mash the gas, and then that scoops it around and whatever. And it's just bizarre, because that's not how you drive any other car.
But this is part of the super handling all-wheel drive and the intelligent drive system, IDS. So in sport mode,
Yeah.
and the torque is being vectored from side to side as well as front to back. But you brought up the little screen. I think, Frank, you had some comments to say about the screens within the vehicle.
It's a complete no sale for me. They need to fire everybody that works on the center of the interior and get all new ones from Audi or somewhere else. I mean, they've got like 3 screens. They got a knob that controls the second one, so you've got to leap over the one right below it to see what you're doing. When I listen to the radio, half the fun of XM or whatever, seeing the title and all that stuff, it doesn't go on the dedicated radio screen. I have to turn off my nav if I want to see that. It's just stupid stuff like that. Every time I tried to play AHA, it played it as a phone call.
And like, I mean, compared to just again back to the seeing what you're listening to, like on the Dodge and the Jeep, Uconnect, which you can get on a Dart, shows you the artist, the album, the song. On this one, if you're streaming Bluetooth from your phone, you see the song title. You don't. I mean, and it's a $60,000, almost $60,000.
You can dedicate the top screen and get all the information, but I probably want to look at the nav up
Right?
there.
Yeah, it's just not a good solution.
But
Kind of a mess in terms of design, is what you're saying. Okay, ergonomics.
Well, I was just going to say, what's especially frustrating about that, too, is when you look at that level of refinement inside and you see how quiet that cabin is and what a nice job they did elsewhere, that it sort of fell apart with that. It's just extra disappointing. It's magnified by how good everything else around it is.
And it's like getting an
inside.
opinion. Like, you have a knob, like a lot of people, you have a knob controller and a touch screen, and you have some buttons. And they don't have 50,000 buttons like they used to, but yeah, you've 9, but now you also have a touch screen and a knob.
A lot of sub-menus.
It's just poorly designed.
I just hate that it's so inefficient. I mean, if Audi shows that you can do this with one knob and one screen, why do you need 2 screens?
And like 5 buttons around it. But,
11 buttons around it, but still.
I get your point. I see your point.
The technical director does have to give credit for, I think it's probably the cheapest car with standard LED headlights, cool. Lane keeping assist, which I fear is just all you had to do is keep a hand on there.
It was nice, too,
Everyone will be
because
free to
it
just
was
keep their
kind
head
of-
in their hands.
it was subtle.
But
It
it
wasn't-
feels good, So a lot of cutting edge stuff on there.
Yeah, lane keep assist, adaptive cruise control, all aboard for roughly $60,000. I did struggle though with, I think Johnny, you mentioned it, the bandwidth here. There's one engine. There's no super high performance version. There's no hybrid.
That's
eco.
a good engine, but it's that kind of Japanese luxury mentality where this is all we think you need. Whereas the Germans, who the Acura wants to compete with, 15 engines. If you want 600 horsepower, you can buy it. And it's just, I don't know. It's.
I wouldn't advocate them to do a 600 horsepower Acura just yet.
With that all-wheel drive system, would be awesome.
It would be awesome, but that's the NSX. I mean, they're not going to do it with an SUV like that.
But BMW does, and Mercedes does, and why not? If they're really going to be a true luxury player, why not?
I think this is the most luxurious Acura SUV I've driven to date.
Yeah. I mean, it was quiet. It was well damped. Great sound insulation. Very, very smooth ride. Lovely engine. I love the way it sounded. The DI 3.5 liter V6.
It's really smooth too. Really trans.
Great engine.
I think my only issue with it is the advancement in design. I mean, I think it looks pretty similar to the old one. I mean, it's kind of an evolution because they didn't. Because the old one sold really well, so they didn't want to go too far. But I kind of wish they had.
But I hate those headlights. That jeweled headlight is just not good.
But it's LED.
Yeah.
You can do LED and good looking.
It had a quality look to it, though. I mean, walking up it, it's an impressive.
Yeah, it's got some presence to it, I would say.
I just can't wait for an upgrade to the infotainment software graphics.
Yeah, they're very
That's
old.
a good
Yeah, the
point.
map looks terrible. I mean, and that's another thing too. Like, it's a luxury vehicle, $60,000. The map on your phone shouldn't look better than the map in your big luxury vehicle.
So, strong marks on design. Great driving vehicle. I think, though, we have and a good value. We looked a little bit at, I mean, we know about its safety? Its predecessor did quite well.
Yeah, it was quite well. It did very well on the IHS. Upper mid-pack on NHTSA. Hasn't had the small overlap test yet, so we don't.
Also, its efficiency is really good. Compared to a lot of cars that make less power and way more.
Giant engine in it.
But just to go back to safety, on the long lead, they showed us an internal video of the small overlap, and it passed with flying colors. So they're predicting top safety pick plus, and
Honda knows about
there.
the small overlap.
Yeah.
So.
Right. So, but I think what we're saying is, again, this is a vehicle that we can't choose as SUV of the year because even within its own set, there are vehicles that we think maybe do it better, offer more.
And it, like Frank said, it has some deal-breaking stuff. I mean, I think that infotainment is just, it's not up to par.
Okay, so we're down to our last two finalists, and really this is when the gloves come off. I'm very excited about this because I've been hearing a lot of buzzing about these last two. First up is the Jeep Grand Cherokee, and to clarify, we actually had 4 different variants. We had the Pentastar V6 Jeep Grand Cherokee, we had that EcoDiesel 6-cylinder Grand Cherokee, we had the V8 Hemi, and we had the SRT Grand Cherokee. All had the brand new ZF 8-speed transmission and all of those new engines I just mentioned. But pretty polarizing vehicle. Let's start with Kim, who didn't like it.
Big mistake.
Well, I'm impressed that they were able to take what feels to me like an old vehicle and polish it and create something that works better than ever. But to me, I feel like I've driven something like this 15 or 20 years ago. It just has a sense, not that it is, but a sense of old bones here that I just don't like.
In what way? Yeah, I think you were saying kind of feels like a truck.
There was some chassis quiver over some bumps. The ride quality sometimes is very lumpy and unexpected and unpredictable in which direction you're tossed in. The sound of the engine, the very delayed throttle response in some of the vehicles. Those are all sort of old characteristics that I don't care for.
On the other hand, Allison?
Well, for starters, I completely disagree with you. And I was thoroughly impressed with the Jeeps. One of the things I do genuinely like about it is that when you talk about SUV, the Jeep line totally runs the gamut from sport all the way to hard utility. I mean, it's got all of it. You start with the SRT on one side. You've got a lot of good volume selling things with that V6 was awesome with the 8-speed behind it. The 5.7 liter was terrific as well. But then they have on the other side with utility and is the diesel. Not only that, but its off-road capability is terrific, and it can tow. It can genuinely tow, and there aren't that many other vehicles in this category that can do that.
And not only that, but a lot of the things that you're complaining about on-road are directly related to an off-road capability. Very languid steering means that you won't break a thumb if you suddenly step off a rock, off-road.
The reality, though, is that today people rarely do that. A modern SUV, that's a rarity. Okay.
But this one
It's
can,
too
and
dominating.
one of our criteria, purpose of intended function, like this thing is intended to go off-road.
Yeah.
And the people that do take it off-road, they're going to love it.
And the throttle response, you don't want a jumpy throttle when you're tiptoeing up the Rubicon. There's just a lot of those things. And yeah, maybe they could be, better tailored to when you've got it on one of the rocky modes or something like that. But I tend to cut some slack for Jeeps and Rovers that really do serious off-roading on steering feel and some of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, just for the record, I also think Kim's totally out of his mind because they launched this thing a few years ago, and I remember that SUV of the year did well, but it didn't win. And I was talking to some of the Jeep guys, and they're like, yeah, we it was right after the bankruptcy. We sort of launched an unfinished product, but now we finish it. And again, bandwidth. You look, 4 engines in a vehicle line. Sure. This, aside from trucks, for American cars, I can't think of any others that have 4 different engines that cover the spectrum.
They can't make up their mind.
The thing with when you're looking at SUVs, now a lot of them now are crossovers, and what they had to give up for something that's a more car-like ride, something like that, is capability. Now, what Jeep has managed to do with these is, you still have that capability, you still have that off-road ability, but you have power, and you have volume, and you have comfort, and you have luxury, and that's not something that necessarily a crossover can brag. This has actual capability.
Well, I would agree, but I actually like the Durango more in that sense because I felt like it offered as much capability, more interior volume, and at a lower price. Well, let's go to the other side of the table here. You guys dominating it over here. Let's see what Rory. Jump in there, Rory.
I think it's cool. Jeep didn't have to keep doing a vehicle like the SRT. It's a very low volume SUV.
Very high margin.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And to have a 5,300 pound vehicle with 470 horsepower, that's one of the quickest car here, is just outstanding. The downside of that is that it's really expensive, and I think that at $68,000, it's
Don't forget 11 miles a gallon.
and 11 miles.
And wouldn't you rather have a Cayenne, maybe?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I like the SQ5 honestly a little bit more than the Jeep, but the Jeep has such an unmistakable quality to it. It's a super cool car.
Ron?
I would say, as far as performance of intended function, I think they've really nailed it. Like to Allison and Frank's and Johnny's points, they can do kind of everything. And then, that's, I think, really impressive. But to, defend Kim and back up Kim a little bit here, I think, 90% of even Grand Cherokee buyers aren't doing serious off-roading. They might be doing some light off-roading, so kind of design the vehicle around, hardcore off-roading and being able to do that, at the price of not that great on the road.
So it's not engineering excellence, it's almost engineering overkill.
I can't think of any other vehicle, especially with these here, that all 4 of them drove and felt differently than the other ones, and that isn't necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, if I can go back to refinement, so we drove a Grand Cherokee Eco Diesel a couple of months ago, and it's one of the things that we remember the most about back then was the diesel clatter. This Grand Cherokee Eco Diesel that we have now is it seems quieter, it seems to ride a little better, and drives a little better.
And there's so many little delights in that SRT. There's all the little things you can do on the screen in the gauge cluster that'll show you your G's and your axle and so forth. And there's even some SRT apps in the nice big 8-inch screen that will show you, so you can pay attention to your 0 to 60 or 0 to 100 to 0, and then stop and look and see what the results were over here. A whole bunch of neat little things. You can see one gauge shows instantaneous power, torque, and oil pressure all in one. Just neat stuff they figured out. Hey, we could do this.
It's got the hood of a Viper. It's got
very cool.
Not only that, the last SRT people were like, oh, you can't tow with it. I don't know why you would tow with an SRT Jeep, but anyway, so then now you can tow. You can go 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds, and you can tow 7,200 pounds. That's incredible engineering.
And it comes back to what we were saying off camera, where yes, are these vehicles over-designed maybe for the consumer. But somebody here made the point that it's not really about what you will do with it, but what you can do with it. People like to have that sort of
Absolutely.
feeling that I'm like Superman. I can ford 3 feet of water. I can go 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. I can tow a boat as well.
Yeah, and talk about, these are sport utility vehicles. I mean, the Grand Cherokee nails that definition. I mean, they're sporty, they're utilitarian. I mean,
They're
low
vehicles.
gears, they're vehicles.
So let's talk about our last finalist then, which is a previous Motor Trend Sport Utility of the Year winner, the all-new Subaru Forester. Early buzz on this one? What do you
Outward
think?
visibility is amazing.
Benson, outward visibility is amazing. It feels like it's based on the Impreza platform, so we have the lower door sills. You get in there. That's, I think, definitely the single biggest difference between any other vehicle here is how much
see out of it.
you can see the road ahead and to your side. Rory?
It's just a ton of surface area. The glass surface area is just massive. And the other thing that does besides visibility is it gives you a really light, kind of airy feeling in the cabin, and it feels very spacious. There's a ton of light coming through. It's very bright. And it's just such a change from driving some of these cars here that really kind of feel like caves.
Yeah, I really felt strongly that this thing has some of the best engineering excellence of any of the vehicles here in terms of our key criteria. A lot of solid engineering choices. The vehicle feels light. It's got a great transmission, great powertrain. Again, we talked about its outward visibility. The packaging is excellent. I think on par in terms of space efficiency to that Buick I loved quite a bit in terms of having a big rear seat and a big package, a big cargo hold. But let's talk about things we didn't like.
Well, I'm going to throw something out here, and you might not like this, but I didn't really agree with the idea of the design advancement. I didn't feel like this was such a huge step in design from the previous.
I don't think it's a huge step, but it's definitely a step. As Ed, as you mentioned, this
Still ugly, though.
It was a previous winner, and to see the differences from the one that won a few years ago to this one, evident.
Yeah,
advance.
evident that they changed the sheet metal, but I will agree that Subaru doesn't build beautiful vehicles.
Like they say, like they don't hire designers and they pass the savings on to the customers. I mean, that's fine. But talk about value. One of the key criteria, that turbo, that XT, 28,000. I mean, that's an incredible value. Incredible value.
But it doesn't have a lot of features. It doesn't have seat warmers. It doesn't have keyless entry.
it
it
is
doesn't
seat
have-
warmers.
You have to step up. I mean,
It's a very primitive radio system.
Yes,
I
it is.
paired my phone and tried every onboard app in every car, and there was very little of that in this one.
28,000.
I felt like there was some cost cutting in that cabin, to be honest with
But
you.
at the same time, just driving down the road, it has a sense of quality to it, despite
agree.
it being lower priced.
I agree.
I prefer the sense of solidity and quality over many of the vehicles here that cost much, much more.
Especially in a car that only weighs 3,400 pounds. Second
That's something
lightest.
Subaru didn't used to have.
Amazing.
Subarus used to be very hollow, empty sounding vehicles. This one is a lot more planted. And as Kimmy mentioned, I mean, just driving down the road, it's quiet, it's smooth.
Yeah, really
The CVT works fantastic. Even the manual here, which was the only manual we had. Thing was fun is,
The manual was also 23,000, just right 24 inches.
so I mean, the
It's a
value.
little
like Johnny
rubbery
mentioned.
as manual
Well,
sticks.
this one itself, this is
Less than 10%
It's a journalist car too, so those tend to be a little bit more used, but
But you talk about engineering excellence, right? I mean, this is the same platform as the Crosstrek XV, which was here last year. We all liked it, but it really felt cheap and really boomy and everything. And this is, I agree, except for the Acura, I think this is the best riding car here. I mean, it was the Force was incredible.
what's really cool is, I mean, to get in it, it's like you're getting in a car. Like it's really low, it's easy. Then once you're in there, you're sitting high. You got great visibility, like we've said. But you also have almost 9 inches of ground clearance.
Yeah, again, the packaging is incredible. The engineering there is insane, and also the efficiency. I think it's just got some of the best fuel economy.
The best. I do believe we're gonna find.
Manual, yeah.
And as far as safety,
Not
I mean,
with
it's
both.
aced every safety test out there. I think maybe it's like one of 2 or 3 that in that category that have done that.
Yeah.
including the small overlap, which is the hot test right now.
One of the things I was surprised about was that not only was it fun to drive on the road, which you might not think by looking at it, but it was just incredible off-road.
Oh, yeah.
And the off-road capability was outstanding for something that felt so small and really so much like a car.
my one gripe with the off-road is that Subaru has a very unique buyer, and their buyers tend to go places where you might want to be able to turn traction control completely, traction and stability off. Can't do that in the Subaru. That's a little annoying. Now, it's not a deal breaker type thing, but because of this car, it's a program. Just let me push that button twice and defeat everything.
Especially with the turbo, like the manual with the 2.5 liter naturally aspirated engine. You can't turn it all the way off, but it's still, you can have a lot of fun. And the turbo has so much more speed and capability. I wish it would be able to turn off because the nannies kind of come in.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that transmission, the CVT. I mean, here's a mind-blowing thought. It does have a manual, which we liked a lot, but I think a lot of us really enjoyed that CVT and the turbo. Why?
That CVT, when you put it in Sport Sharp, so it has intelligent drive or whatever it's called, you have Sport, you have Sport Sharp. You put it in Sport Sharp, it mimics an 8-speed transmission, but it's the tuning. It has a super aggressive tuning, and it's like as good as like a Porsche PDK in Sport Plus. Like you start really braking hard, it's downshifting for you. It's never jumping up to a gear. And I was driving really hard. I noticed I'm in second gear. That's awesome.
I agree. It was really weird to find that a CVT would behave in such an aggressive way, especially coming from a manufacturer like Subaru. But Frank also brings up a good point in that we were driving, especially the turbo version of the Forester, quite hard. I would say as hard as both the Audi SQ5 and the Jeep Grand Cherokee SRT. And what do we discover?
So we got 15.5 miles per gallon on the Subaru, 13.8 on the SQ5, and 11.3 on the Grand Cherokee SRT.
So we got very, very good fuel economy.
Well, not nearly as terrible.
Not nearly as terrible.
I was driving that manual pretty aggressively as well. What did the manual get fuel mileage?
21.9.
So which is
that's the test, right?
I mean,
Probably.
Yeah.
So great marks on efficiency. I think, again, we're talking about fun to drive and engineering excellence in terms of, again, the transmission. But I do sense we have some detractors here, Allison.
Okay, look. When I see the Forester, when I drive it, it feels to me like a tarted up wagon.
What?
So, explain to me why this is better than just a wagon with all-wheel drive.
There aren't a lot of wagons out
You can really
there.
go off-road in this.
Yeah. And there are not a ton of wagons, any wagons, I think, available at this price range that you can.
And yeah, I
do
think you get the higher seating position, which a lot of people like.
It must not be a wagon because people buy them. That's irrefutable logic right there. That's
the best
true.
point made. And on that note, unless anybody has anything else they want to say, I think we're ready to vote. All right.
You have nothing dumb to add?
No.
I think I took
All right, you guys have your ballots, so please give me your first, second, and third, and write them down and send them over. So we drove all 22 competitors. We've had a great time here discussing, deliberating, arguing with one another, and we just put it to a vote. So by a 6-3 win, simple majority, Motor Trend's 2014 Sport Utility Year is the Subaru Forester. There were 13 all-new or significantly updated SUVs in contention to win Motor Trend's 2014 Sport Utility of the Year award. But in the end, there could be only one winner. And that is the 2014 Subaru Forester. It's important to understand that Sport Utility of the Year is not a straight-ahead comparison test. What we do is compare each SUV against the award's 6 key criteria: value, safety, efficiency, advancement in design, engineering excellence, and performance of intended function. And in each one of these categories, the Subaru Forester made a very compelling case. When it comes to value, the Forester has a very low price of admission, roughly $23,000 for entry-level units, and nicely equipped models in the $30,000 range. And you get a lot for your money, including 2 potent yet efficient boxer engines, an all-wheel drive system, and your choice of CVT or 6-speed manual transmissions, all in an incredibly comfortable, spacious, and well-designed package. When it comes to safety, Forester also excels. Not only does it have 7 standard airbags, It also comes with optional features such as lane departure warning and eyesight, a camera system that helps with collision mitigation. So it's no wonder the Insurance Institute of Highway Safety gave the Forester its top safety rating. Now when it comes to advancement in design, it's pretty clear that Subaru designers follow in the form follows function camp. There's no mistaking the Subaru is not the sexiest SUV on the road, but what I like about it and what our editor decided is that the Forester is very honest, very smart, and incredibly practical. What the Forester does really well is give great visibility, and that's because the designers have chosen to give this vehicle a very low sill height. Now when it comes to engineering excellence, the Forester has a few tricks as well. It's really good off-road, thanks to its X-Mode all-wheel drive system and high ground clearance. Yet it also managed to deliver great fuel economy, thanks to the turbocharged Boxer engines and a very slick, very trick, high-performance CVT that is actually quite a lot of fun to drive on the road. But the bottom line is performance of intended function. And if you're in the market for a two-row SUV that is affordable, safe, efficient, fun to drive both on-road and off, the Subaru Forester ticks all the boxes, which is why it's Motor Trend's 2014 Sport Utility of the Year.